private sector will be maintained.
Someone's got to develop a product that you and I as a consumer are going to want to buy.
The country needs a comprehensive energy plan. We don't know how long this will last.
Hello everyone, I'm Jed Donahue and welcome to For the Record. Our guest today is Dr. Barbara Dixon, who is the interim president at Lock Haven University and has been the interim president since July of last year. Prior to coming to Lock Haven, Dr. Dixon served as president at Truman State University in Missouri for 5.5 years. We're delighted to have you on For the Record. You are an interim president, so we might as well start there and tell that story because you kind of, or I don't know, a stopgap is the right way. Maybe you'll stay, maybe you won't. Transition. There you go. Kind of explain the process because this is kind of unique.
Institutions, first of all, the former president resigned to take another position, and the resignation came in late December. So that's almost too late to start a full-fledged search. And so the institution that in that position that has a vacancy for the next year has to make a decision about whether you do a fast search, whether you bring someone from within or whatever. The PASHI system, the chancellor decided that given the timing and the fact that our senior level administrators were provost vice presidents were very new to the system, they hadn't been there long, I think they believed it would be better to get a seasoned person to come in for a year. And there is an organization called the Registry for College and University Presidents. Its sole purpose is to have retired presidents that are willing to go out and do an interim position. So that's how this came about. And my background with unions, working in a system, and having my entire career in public education, it seemed a good match.
And I think even before we start, you play the piano, and most of your background, as far as when you went to Michigan State and everything, has been in music and things like that, right? Yeah, I would say
I'm a pianist, or I used to be.
Right, okay.
Yes, my degrees are all in music, and for 18 years I was a faculty member and I taught piano and did a lot of concerts. It was a very different life.
Okay, and here you are now. Now Lock Haven, a lot of you, I think from an athletic standpoint, know it as part of the PSAC, but it's one of 14 public universities of the Pennsylvania state system of higher education. I'm a father, I've got two of them at Indiana and Kutztown, so I'm kind of familiar. But kind of explain how this particular thing works, because this is something very unique for Pennsylvania. In a way.
In some ways, yes, it is unique. The schools in the PASHI system all have their roots in teacher education, and they evolved from the normal schools up to the state teachers colleges and then into the comprehensive universities, and then were formed into a system. And one of the differences is the amount of funding that we get from the state. We are considered to be a state-owned system, and then there are the state-related, like Penn State, Pitt, and
there's Temple.
Lincoln, yes, yeah. And then you have the privates. So all of the 14 are considered to be state-owned. The system is considered to be state-owned, and we have a chancellor, and there's a set of senior administrators at the chancellor's office that we all work with.
So even though it's like 14 separate things, you're kind of geared in under one umbrella would be maybe a way of looking at it?
We have one board of governors for the entire system. However, each institution has its own individual council of trustees who are made up of people who are more local or alums of that particular institution.
All right, let's talk about, and one thing we found out in the political process here on For the Record last year was making tuition affordable, making higher education accessible. And you looked at it from a Pennsylvania standpoint for Pennsylvania students and things like that. So far, so good. I mean, I know, and we'll get into costs and trying to keep things down a little bit, but how do you do that?
I think it's difficult. The whole face of public education has changed so drastically since you and I went to school,
right? Where
80 to 90% of the tuition was, 80 to 90% of the cost the price of going to school was subsidized by the state, and it's been a gradual, if you look at a graph, it kind of has gone this way. Right. And not just in Pennsylvania, that's all over the country. That's happened.
This and other,
yes, absolutely. Right. And particularly it's more difficult now in economic, in difficult economic times, I think we try to keep our costs as low as we can, and yet fulfill the mission. We try to cut out, on our side, we cut out anything that really we don't think is necessary. But we're faced with decreasing, we and other states are faced with decreasing support from the state. And so it has to come out somewhere. It's really difficult to keep a high quality education without at least tuition raises that match the cost of living increase. So it's difficult for everyone. It's difficult for the states because of the economic situation, and it is difficult for the institutions if their subsidy from the state keeps going down. Their only option is to raise tuition or to start cutting areas, and you can only cut so far, and then you start decreasing the quality of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it, in school districts, not only around Pennsylvania, but around the country. And, we've talked about that so much. I don't even know if you can do it in a minute. Give it a shot, though. But, you've got faculty costs you got to worry about. I mean, energy costs, they're not going any down. Education's kind of at a crossroads right now. In a way, across the board on how to manage,
It is.
Manage yourself financially and stay afloat.
Well, we often look at the consumer price index. There's also a higher education price index, which is a higher index usually in the raise in the year, because we're not necessarily, a retail business. We're not revenue producing. We're a service industry, really. And so it's not easy.
No, it certainly isn't, but, and that's the challenge every day.
And energy, as you said, energy costs go up. A university has a huge physical plant that they have to take care of. And you're faced with, do you cut your plant fund for a year in order to do other things? And then that it's a spiral. That usually causes deferred maintenance, and you can get into a spiral that you can't get out of. We do have high faculty costs, but we have really good faculty too. And yet students today don't want bare minimum. They want higher quality facilities, higher quality. They want rec centers, and they want new residence halls.
And all of that sort of
It's
thing.
a very delicate balance.
I'm sure. And we'll get into more of that delicate balance. You're watching For the Record. Our guest is Dr. Barbara Dixon, the interim president at Lock Haven University. We'll be back with more after this.